on the property market front line and on the ground running. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to the latest post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. And today I have property insider Edwin Almeida with me again. Hello, Edwin.
Hello, Martin. And I can tell you one thing is that I have been doing a lot of running lately myself.
Yeah, you look a bit skinny.
Yeah, well, I've lost four kilos. I've just been challenged to a fight. So I've got another 4 kilos to lose before I can get into it. But I think I'm running a lot faster, evading all those mainstream media analysts and the mainstream real estate agents that have got painted a target on my back. So if you keep on moving, you don't get hit, they say.
Yeah, fast target and keep dodging and weaving. Exactly.
That's the way.
Well, look, there's a few things I'd like to chat with you about today. Let's start, though, with the imperative to sell. It looks to me as though we're seeing more people that are being literally forced to sell.
They are, Martin. I guess as this is on the ground running and a running commentary of what we're seeing, what I'm seeing lately, particularly with my clients and clients from agents that I gather a lot of information from around Sydney, is that there are a lot of vendors that are in financial stress, and one of the disheartening or sad things about this the market downfall is the economic pressure on families. And that's creating a lot of stress. And I'm also picking up a lot of clients that I have to assist with, in the separation, in terms of assist the lawyers and the accountants deal with the separation of the assets, or selling down their assets in this investment properties and principal place of residence, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's interesting because Eddie Hobbs from Ireland highlighted the fact that it's actually some of those social implications which are often not fully understood nor recognised till way too late. And yet, of course, this is really where it hits people right between the eyes, isn't it?
Look, it is. It's a sad state of affairs. Close friends, family, and also agents and their close friends and family, and that's what we're hearing more and more as we get together in our meetings and as we share information. It's just pressure sales, not only from the fact that they want to sell quick before they lose more equity in their investment properties, but forced sales due to court orders and the like.
Yeah, and so the other interesting thing, of course, is there are people who are sitting on equity, banking on that equity as they move into retirement, and suddenly discovering that the equity that they thought they had is disappearing quick. So they're also now very, very keen to try and actually exit the market and even take a lower asking price. So that all puts more downward pressure on prices, doesn't it?
Very much so. And the other thing is the another contributor to that is obviously, look, as much as the banks deny it, we know for a fact on the road that on the ground that they are instructed by the valuers are instructed by the banks, and the rule of thumb is the valuable value of property now based on a forced sale. If you went to auction in 3 or 6 months' time, which obviously in most cases a lot of these sales are not going to meet the contract price. And that's why you and I have been talking about it for many months, almost a year now, with the caution of the buying at auction as well.
Yes, and we'll come back perhaps to discuss in more detail this whole question of, well, what is a fair valuation, both as a market valuation, but also, as you say, as a forced sale valuation, because, of course, that is always a lower number. And if you take that lower number and also the transaction costs, it means that essentially people end up with less than they thought, and quite often that will take them into negative equity, so they may sell and still have a mortgage to repay.
Well, yeah, and they're going to be forced to sell, Martin. They won't be able to hold it. And as I said, because of the recent dynamics that I'm seeing, that we have been seeing in the last 3 or 6 months, which is the forced sales due to separation or any other reason, it's the pressure's on, and the banks are starting to take, as we say, haircuts on some of these settlements. Again, another scenario there that plays out is are the real estate agents going to be able to keep the commissions as well? Real estate agents, a lot of them don't realise that we are what we call, we're unsecured creditors at the end of the day. And if the sale falls short of what the principal creditor is owed, well, the solicitors can call in all the monies that are being, all the funds. In this case, it means that a lot of agents, if they don't know how to play the cards right, they could lose their commissions as well.
Yeah, tricky times. Okay, let's switch to another conversation. So the Reserve Bank put out a speech quite recently, and they highlighted the fact that consumer spending is significantly down. And they specifically highlighted the sale of cars and the fact that the number of new cars being purchased was way off where it had been previously. Now, that's something that you and I touched on some time ago, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the RBA is been reading your post, Martin. I get a funny feeling that the mainstream media are finally catching up to the fact that there's a YouTube channel, DFA Analytics, and there's a fellow called Martin North that puts out some real crazy shit out there, 12 months ago, and now it's all coming to fruition, and it's not as crazy as what you and I had discussed, 4 or 5 months ago, or 3 months ago, whatever it was, because this is stuff that happens on the ground. This is stuff that we see. That they are the on the ground indices, you could call them, as to what we see happen, and the trends. It just plays out before our eyes, and we said that. I said that the ones that are going to be mostly affected are these new subdivisions further away from the transport hubs. That have got 2, 3, 4 cars in some families. So there is a good side. There is a good side to this coin, and that is the fact that there's going to be less traffic on the road in the near future as well. So it's one of those things, you take the good with the bad. And in this case, in my case, because I'm on the road doing about 500-600 kilometres a week, that's a good thing for me. Less traffic. I don't have to use the toll roads as much. I can get through the normal transport arterial roads as opposed to using the tolls to get from one place to another. We're going to see more for sale cars that are for sale on the sides of roads, and the viewers can pay close attention to that. That's going to be interesting. We're going to see more rows of cars on, near and around roundabouts with for sale signs on them and stickers, buy my car and blah, 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 and so forth.
Yeah, and also I've noticed that there's more people selling their old boats and, 4x4s and all sorts of other things as well. So it's all about deleveraging, and it's all about trying to get money off assets to be able to keep the household budget afloat, isn't it? Yeah,
like I said, they're going to sell the extra cars, the cars that they're going to, the little Johnny and little Mary had told the parents that they need to buy them because they have to go to, they can't catch public transport to school and so forth, because the cost of living is going to increase. All the toys are going to go, all the mistresses are going to go, all the extra curricular activities are going to go, the private personal trainers that the stay-at-home parents use, well, they're going to go as well. So we can be coy about it, but at the same time, there's a serious side to it. There's all these ancillary industries and services that are going to start suffering because they are not going to be, people aren't going to be using them, and which is going to impact the economy. So the ripple effect is just going to increase. It only takes one small pebble to fall off the top of a rock face to start creating a massive avalanche.
I'm talking of things spilling over. I think the other thing to look at are things like the amount of coffee that's bought and taken away, and those sorts of things, and other leading indicators of where we may be seeing stress ahead.
So you just talking about coffee. You just had to bring that in because you saw me drinking my coffee. All right? Thank you very much, Martin.
Timing is everything.
Just because you Poms love your tea doesn't mean they have to pick on coffee. Yeah, look, it's true. It is so real. You could say the coffee accounts are going to dwindle away. as a business broker, we're noticing also in a lot of the coffee shops that are up for sale, when you ask them how many kilos of coffee have they sold in the last 3, 4, 5 months, and that's decreased by almost 50%, which is alarming considering the fact that these are small business operators that employ a small number of people or their families, and they're going to be out of a job soon. They're going down from full-time to part-time, to the business owners having to increase their hours in order just to stay afloat. We're heading into a personal high credit card economy. A lot of businesses have been using credit cards to survive, and now they're going to be using them even a lot more just to keep breathing, to keep the head above water. And it's becoming scarier by the month, Martin. And I'd say, I know it's a small indicator, but nevertheless, it is an indicator of how people are traveling out there. You see shopping centres as Cookie Boy keeps on putting out on Twitter, as he takes photographs of shopping centres and in arcades as he travels around Sydney himself, and it is quite alarming. Shop owners, you only have to go to a shopping centre yourself, or even the strip shops in main roads, main arterial roads, and you see the for lease signs everywhere. It is becoming more and more alarming.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I see from my SME surveys that more small businesses are now reporting that it's taking longer to get paid, so that they've got severe cash flow issues. And they've also got difficulty, for example, meeting the tax requirements and tax payments when they're falling due as well. So cash flow in a number of small business sectors, and that includes retail, that includes some of the cafes and restaurants, as well as some of the service sectors as well, who are providing services to other businesses. All of those things are actually going the wrong way.
That's right. And I've met a lot of business owners that are using credit cards to pay off the last credit card, and they get a Hail Mary, and then they somehow pay one or two of them off. But within the last 3 months, in talking to them once again, they're guess what? They're back to where they were 6 months ago, trying to pay off 3, 4 credit cards just to keep going, because the banks are not giving them any further drawdown facilities on the principal place of residence or the properties, because the banks are becoming more and more aware that there's less equity in the properties. So it's going to get tight. It's going to get tighter by the month, Martin.
Yeah, I think that's true. Well, let's turn then to off the plan trends, because I think there's some interesting stuff happening there, right? We know that there are people now trying to exit the contracts that they went into sort of 18 months ago at the peak. And we know that developers are pretty desperate to try and shift some of the properties that they're in the middle of constructing. And we also know that other developers have stopped or have slowed the development of work in progress. So this area, again, looks pretty dodgy, doesn't it?
Look, it is alarming. I met with a group of Asian solicitors and conveyancers last weekend, and they called me in to have a chat with regard to helping them to advise their clients as to what to do, and we noted some of these things out. One of the interesting things that came out of the conversation was when I asked them, well, tell me what are your clients doing? And one of the things that a lot of the clients were actually doing and looking at doing, Martin, is actually borrowing the shortfalls from the purchase price to the current valuation from what I would call loan sharks. And we're talking about short-term interest loans of 12 or 18 months with 13 to 15% interest payable on them. Now, obviously, the ins and outs of how they obtained the rest of the credit, I can only speculate they're going to second and third tier lenders as opposed to the majors in order to get away with it. But the simple fact of the matter is that these people are looking and are obtaining those short-term loans. Now, we're not talking about $20,000 or $30,000. We're talking about anywhere between $100,000 and $200,000 under a short-term period, which has to be paid alongside with the with obviously the main loan from the main mortgage holder. So and the rents aren't going to cover it. Properties in and around Epping have also been told, and in some cases, some of these new developments are taking up to 4 to 5 months to lease out. And from my other friends around Sydney, a lot of them are reducing the landlords or the owners' the asking rental price by anything from from $10 to $20 a week. And that is huge when you start talking about rents of about $400 a week or $350 a week for townhouses out west. So, rents are going down. The cost to obtain funding is going up somewhat and to settle. So a lot of people are walking away, Martin, but at the same time, there's quite a large portion of them that are looking for that for those loan sharks to borrow the balance, which is alarming in itself.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's some of the bottom feeders who come out at this time in the cycle, and it doesn't actually necessarily help those people with difficulty. It just gets them into even deeper problems later, because of course those loans have to be repaid too as well, don't they?
Well, that's right. They have to be, and it's usually those loans that are then forces them to sell up. So they're only delaying the inevitable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's switch to the last one that we're going to talk about today, and that's stamp duty, because, of course, the New South Wales government has a massive demand for stamp duty to make their budgets work. I think it's, 7.8 billion, I think, last time I looked. But it looks as though that could be dropping.
What's a couple of billion between friends, Martin? Just make a phone call, and we could. They tell me that WA is about to boom again, and they tell me that Tasmania and South Australia are still, going up. So what's a few phone calls between state parliamentarians? New South Wales are in a lot of trouble, Martin. The New South Wales government are in a lot of trouble with regards to the stamp duty and all those fees payable by purchasers, not only because of people walking away from off-the-plan purchases, particularly our overseas investors, and also the local transactions have dropped. But more importantly, this is something that hasn't been spoken about in the mainstream media, and that is the fact that unsettled properties, in other words, if you buy something off the plane and let's say it takes 2 years for the transaction to complete, the stamp duty component of that transaction is payable within the first, on or before the first 3 months of that transaction. Now, a lot of these overseas investors have paid that stamp duty within that 3-month tenure. Now that they're not going to settle, guess what? They're entitled to ask for that stamp duty back. And so that's going to be another nail in the state government's coffers, because I know there are a number of law firms and agencies and the bigger players with regard to off the plan sales. They're already advising their clients, okay, you've lost your 10%, but guess what? We're going to have to. You can still recover your 4%, 5% stamp duty that you paid when you first bought the property off the plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is all unraveling at the same time, and the falling revenue that the state government will have will put pressure on their overall budget, of course. And I think you're right that the fact that now they maybe need to give refunds on stamp duty is, as you say, not reported at all. I haven't seen it reported before, so I think that's a very important point you've made.
And it's and when you look at the number of transactions, it all adds up. When you round off the stamp duty to say that 5% the value of a property, that's $50,000 for every million that the state government, the government has to pay back to the purchaser, which is still a reasonable amount from an individual. They'll walk away from 100,000, or a lot of them may have in the past walked away from 150,000. You could say the 10% plus the stamp duty, but now they're going to be able to call back that stamp duty, which is rather interesting.
So Edwin, certainly a lot of negative indicators there. We'll keep watching, and we'll get the next blow-by-blow commentary from you in a little while.
Yeah, and like I said, Martin, just for your viewers and your followers to keep an eye out on those garage sales that are going to be popping up everywhere. They'll frequent a lot of coffee shops, so they'll see less and less patronage there in the coffee shops. And also there's going to be a lot of good toys on the side of the road up for sale. They could snap a bargain very soon.
Yeah, coming to a verge near you. Thanks, Edwin. See you soon.
See you.